Hello, welcome to another episode of Full Circle with me, Onyx. And I'm gonna really, in this video, it is about Aries, but it's also about how most people who play with astrology, do chart readings, talk about signs, all the videos are pretty much wrong and putting out, I would say, accepted norm uh, generalizations about a person's personality and characteristics. And so let's go into that first. Just because your sun is in a particular sign, yes, that is who you are. And no, it's not exactly who you are. You're you. But what you're striving for is your sun sign. And you're also your moon sign. Yeah, we know this, right? Every astrologer tells you that, kinda, but you don't understand the the nuanced implications and the depth of that statement until you kind of get a good overview of astrology. And who should have that knowledge is an astrologer. Uh, but we end up speaking signs, symbols, houses, and angles, and then try to deliver that information, and we miss what you're actually learning in a broader scope, and also in a more nuanced way. And reflecting this morning on a video that was, I was like, why am I having conflict in my life? Why do I feel angry? Is there any videos on why Aries feels angry? And once again, we kind of, one thing about astrology, and I would say almost everything nowadays is people are trying to make a dollar. They're trying to build a business, a name for themselves. We have different motives for sharing stuff with the world and talking about it. I would say less people have a genuine passion for the field of study that they're in, or they lose it, not really for greed, but we now kind of live in a society where you're expected to try to generate income. So it kind of gets reduced. Um, and you also got to think about a lot of people, I would say, of average intelligence can't absorb the depth of astrology, because to even do that, it would take a lifetime. And then you weren't able to do anything with it. So, once again, things get generalized. The tarot is very generalized to the masses. And I would say this is mostly a process, because it takes lifetimes to decode the tarot cards. And so what you get is general keywords, general readings, and then a whole bunch of people who don't appreciate the art, the science, the tradition of tarot as its own thing. And then what you get is like fortune tellers with general readings, who don't understand the nuance and the depth and the scope of tarot. And so you could say, Onyx, why are you talking about tarot now? Tarot, it has no function and value without astrology. So astrology is the mother art of Western mystery tradition. And you could say the daughter or the sister art is tarot. And when you start putting that together, you get numerology, you get the four elements, you get so much more. So it's usually within the scope of the Western mystery tradition. And what is mystery, or how do we go about it in a scientific way. So the mystery arts is the foundation of science and technology. And so it's not opposed, it's not a polar opposite to science, to logic, to reason. But if you're going to be logical and reasonable, you need enough of a foundation into that subject to understand it and speak it fluently. So, moving on, now I've told you there is more to astrology. So, and so let's get into the big reason, the big point of that. There's more than one planet ruling your life. And the sun and the moon aren't even planets. So it's the planets in their positions, in their signs, in their houses that are either helping you or hindering you express the purity, the gold of your soul expression of your sun sign. Some astrologers say, oh, this in Western astrology, the sun rules the mind and the moon rules the body and your emotions. You could dare say even the heart. Uh, you know, and then in Eastern astrology, it's flipped. But either way, these two luminaries, the sun and the moon, you could think of as fire and water, heaven, you can think of them, there is a natural balance. There's a yin and yang polarity to this. And what, and so these two planets, these two luminaries, are either working with each other or against each other, and so the tension created could add energy. The tension created could add, or take away, leading to no energy, a depletion. And so the sun and the moon in their position, forget the angles, forget the houses, just in the sign alone, we now are thinking about light and dark, energy, no energy, conscious, subconscious, fire and water. The lords of fire and water is basically the moon and the sun. So the sun is a receptacle, and you can kind of think of the whole entire zodiac well as being focused through the lens of the sun. It's literally like a magnifying glass. It has the ability to shape and bend and pull those energies towards itself, consume it, bring it in, and then direct it outwards. And so the sun gets its light in a weird way by the whole zodiac, by the celestial wheel. The moon kind of does this in a different way. The moon in the tree of life is the second sphere or the ninth sphere, however you look at it. And it is a receiver of all the higher realms, all the celestial spheres above it. And it basically, like a cup, receives it all and then can pour it out onto the earth. And so everything has to come down to the moon. Everything has to hit your subconscious. So in true esoteric psychology, your subconscious is above your consciousness. In the outer psychology, we put consciousness, like a little point in an iceberg, floating on top. That's what you see. And then the subconscious down below, greater, go deeper and deeper. But in Kabbalistic psychology, it's flipped. And above your subconscious is your higher consciousness represented by the sun. A breath of fresh air, able to find its place within the scope of the stars, the universe, the celestial zodiac. So it has a broader perspective. And And so you're moving through, in a weird way, when you align that with the chakra system, you get the root chakra, earth. You get the second chakra of the moon and water and fertility and relationships. And then you get the third chakra, the sense of self identity, joy, um, and it's the solar plex, the sun and fire. And so we've talked about tarot, talked about astrology, we talked about actual planets and luminaries. And now we see how it's functioning in our life in the lower three chakras. And so how vital is your sun and moon and their relationship? So now let's really start to understand. People are like, oh, there's like the negative side of a sun or of a sign, or is this a dark Aries? Is this a karmic Aries, or is this the awakened Aries? Is this the brighter Aries, or whatever it is? And the reality is, you can't heal, you can't awaken until you have developed a positive self-esteem, until you have really formed an identity. So in a weird way, it's a difficult situation we're in. Your negativity is probably, from astrologer's point of view, is probably found in your water houses and your water signs and planets placed in water. Okay? Water has a tendency to absorb. It doesn't really hold its own light. And so it's reliant on its environment to give it shape. And it's being exposed. Whatever you put in water kind of gets incorporated and dissolves. Things get muddy, things get cloudy, things get toxic. We abuse water. So when looking at it through just the 4-element model, an astrologer pretty much does little addition and subtraction and decides, is this a water-dominated chart? Is this a fire-dominated chart? Is this an earth-dominated chart? What is the balance? So in a healthy reading, in a healthy analysis of a sign, of a personality, of a situation, you got to take into account the 4 elements. You got to take into account the modes and behaviors. What is the need of water? But connection, security, or you could say shape. Identity, you could say shape. It's looking for a container that's going to be of use and of service and really allow it to be. And water also flows. So a need for change, a need for movement. When it gets stagnant, it gets toxic. If it's in an environment where people are polluting it, it's going to get toxic. It's going to be very hard to purify itself. So you'll find Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces behavior, and what you experience of them, it's like, who is pissing in the swimming pool? Okay? Who is making it toxic in their environment? And then on the flip side, is your Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio, are they already toxic? And into all these healing, pristine places, are they poisoning other people, other environments? Are they poisoned? So we're really dealing, so wherever you see the moon and so with toxicity, it's hard to express the purity of your true self, of your sun sign, of your goals, aspirations, and dreams. Why do you think humanity is all in therapy? We can look to the death houses, we can look to the water houses, we can look to the signs and those type of planets to really understand what is hindering you from expressing all that. This video, we might not even get to Aries because we had to really go into why these videos on YouTube and why most astrologers suck. It's because of this. Okay? And people just will take information on a surface level and they'll think they're facts. and it's not so. Okay, so let's move on. So now we really understand water plays a huge part on your ability to express your sun. And so we now need to look at your whole entire chart to get a real portrait of who you are, what what you need out of life. So we know water needed that structure, that formation, and I would dare say it. So that would be attachment, that would be memories, that would be engagement. And so when you're dealing with a water sign, they want an energetic connection. They kind of exist through this interplay of other. You can think uh, the structure is the other. You become their mirror as much as they're your mirror. So water signs have a tendency to naturally mirror you, mirror your psychology, and through this mirroring effect, they interact. Uh, but they also want structure, they want attachment, they want to share emotions, they want to share things with you, and they want this kind of no boundary. I call it like a hot tub. They want everyone in the hot tub enjoying themselves. And have you ever been in a hot tub too long and you start to get sick and you start to feel faint and you didn't drink water and you didn't take breaks and you pass out? Yeah, and it's kind of like a death experience. That that's what happens. That's what it feels like for a fire sign, for the sun energy to be dealing with water too long. So even though water will always be attracted to fire, doesn't mean fire is exactly attracted to water. But there's a balancing act going on. Okay? And so when it's not working out between fire and water, between sun and moon, you know, uh, between Aries and I would say Scorpio, or Aries and Cancer, or whatever it is, it's not that they're a bad person now and we label them egocentric and we define it in these really generic labels, definitions, characteristics. You got to look a little bit underneath and you could start to say, I should have known. Fire and water don't really work together. Water has a tendency to be stronger because it pulls, because there's less oxygen in water. So there's nothing for fire to fuel on. Fire is not going to get what it truly needs from water signs. No reason to apologize, no reason to victimize, characterize someone as a bully, as egocentric, or whatever. You're incompatible by planets, you're incompatible by signs, you're incompatible by elements, and you might be really incompatible not because of those, but because of other planets. So, why is it so hard for a Scorpio to chill out? Why is it actually really hard for them to have a functional relationship? There's no Venus. There's no feminine energy there. Even though it's a feminine sign, there is no really considering other people's needs. Um, there is no grace when it comes to Scorpio. It doesn't have that socialized, refined, socialized skill. It doesn't really consider other people. And so we do find Scorpios really learning some of these things they should have learned the sign before them, Libra. How other people think, how other people feel. And those things matter if you want to keep your connections, okay? Uh, and so is the sign not okay? Are they really so bad? No. But the moon lacks any other planetary support. So, of course, Cancerians are going to really need validation. Of course, they're going to want to connect to their world and absorb and receive all the gifts of the other planets and signs. In a weird way, that is their function. So, of course, they're nosy. Of course, they're interested. Of course, they're all up in your business. And for them, that's healthy. And for them, that's correct. It may not be correct for you. So some signs only have one planet. And so they're kind of like going down one road. They're kind of, you know, that's it. Some energy is mutable, so it's going all over the place. And so you're not going to get consistency. You're not going to get rigid boundaries. And so we're really seeing through these modes, uh, my moon is actually in Pisces. So sometimes my energy is all over the place. It's mutating, it's changing, it's transforming. And so you're going to kind of get a natural, unpredictable mood. One minute I'm this, the next minute I'm that. But it's also kind of transmuting and transforming and literally shapeshifting. So it's literally like a cloud, it's literally like storms. Uh, it's a total different moodiness than Cancer. Cancer is definitely water. It's not water vapor, it's not clouds, it's not like moving over the face of the earth in this broad perspective. No, it is lakes, I would say, and so rivers and, it's moving, but it kind of has a pattern and it definitely gets stagnant, stale. Then it, through that stagnation and stale, eventually finds stillness, purification, and then almost like a rebirth in its own way. Scorpio is obviously ice back to probably ocean and lake and whatever. And I would even say outer space, because Pluto is basically a icy moon. It's you know, we just still don't know what it is. And so part of the personality is also the behavior of the planet, its tendencies. And so the moon is way different than Pluto, but then not exactly. Because I actually now have classified Pluto as our solar system's moon. So our moon orbits the Earth, but Pluto, in my mind, is more of a moon than a planetoid or a planet. And oh, is it so bad that Pluto is not a planet? No, because the moon and people who are ruled by the moon and Cancer are very, very powerful. And so now imagine a moon of our solar system. Onyx, why would you say the moon or Pluto is the moon of our solar system? I'm like, bro, it orbits pretty much on the outside of all the other planets in our solar system. So it basically encapsulates, and maybe it's this plutonic energy over like a period of 300 years that goes through this huge epic transformation and also transforms us and everything within its power, which is all the other planets. So the moon doesn't have an atmosphere. Pluto doesn't have an atmosphere. The moon may have life. Pluto may have life. Pluto might actually be more of a true moon than our moon. We still don't know if our moon is hollow or if it's real or even if we ever went to the moon, okay? So, conspiracy theories are out there. Until we get up there, we will eventually find out if it's really true or not. So, there's a lot of mystery with the moon. There's a lot of things you don't see with the moon. And there is a hell of a lot of things you don't see with Pluto. Number one, it's just so far out of reach. So traditionally, the moon has been kind of something out of reach. So Pluto makes a very valid case to be considered a moon of a solar system. Okay? Moving on. So let's go to Pisces. Neptune, this big uh, planet with lots of gas, just like some of the other ones out there. They have huge gas atmospheres. Uh, what you see, so what you see is not what you get. They're shrouded in a chemical, these poisonous vapors or not poisonous vapors, these raging storms on the surface, thick, huge atmospheres. We don't know how much bigger their atmosphere is compared to our atmosphere, how much stronger it is, or how much weaker it is, or we don't know how it's interacting. So there's still a lot of things we don't know. Uh, you know, and so the way it expressed, so no wonder why Pisces is represented as a storm god, clouds, water vapor, rain, rivers, lakes, and oceans, things hidden, expansive, broad. There's a lot more atmosphere and a lot more probably storm activity going on uh, behind the scenes with your Pisces. And so we're gaining a symbolic picture of these moods, of these expressions of water, and how really they're very, very different from each other. So let's kind of bring it back in a little bit. Onyx, weren't we going to kind of talk about Aries? And it's been my experience, Aries is very different. And the fire signs are very different from each other. And we can now say, let's really understand the planet, its behavior, its metal. You know, when I think of Aries, I think of, like a sword being forged into fire, being pounded out, and, that metal's getting red hot and it bends. You know, I'm like, I also think about a meteor hitting the earth and smashing. Uh, so we call that like star metal. Which is things made out of star metal are considered gifts of the gods and for the gods and from the gods. So Aries kind of has this like outer space, out of this world spiritual connection. Is it like silly new age? No. But an Aries has a cosmic connection, a divine uh you know, lineage going on. They can become a god king, or a god emperor. Are they? No. Uh and so we look at Ares, the god of war. We look at his father, who is, the overlord of Olympus, Zeus. We look at his mother, who is also a goddess, Hera. Not any old goddess, but Hera, the all goddess, with the all seeing eye and the peacock feathered, you know. So we think, okay, maybe Aries might have some foresight like his father. He might have an all seeing eye like his mother. So when you start looking at the Olympian gods, these behaviors of planets embodied as beings, Hera was kind of vengeful. Hera was raging. And don't you think maybe Aries got that from his mother? And then Jupiter, Zeus, is benevolent, and he's a leader and a ruler, and he was the youngest, Olympian to like rule over his brothers and sisters. So don't you think some of this young, immature luck is on his side? Don't you think maybe his that kind of inner wisdom is there? This philosophical view is there with Aries? And the answer is yes. So, does your Aries have was he raised by a tyrannical mother? Uh, you know, so a lot goes on into the childhood of the Aries. Does he take more after his mother or more after his father? Is he more, or he or she are they more open to words of wisdom, this higher education? The head kind of rules the mind. The head has a third eye. The head also is what receives information from the crown chakra. So maybe there's like a connection between crown chakra, third eye, going on with an Aries that is being overlooked, as people call them selfish, arrogant, egocentric. So this little video is about to end. And yeah, we didn't really get too far into it, into the sign, the personality of Aries, but we now really understand the overview and how to start really looking at personalities through the signs. Because if they're not, you're like, my Aries isn't wise, my Aries isn't brave. I'm like, well, look to the moon. Well, is there a planet? Is the Mars in the wrong element? You know, or is something obstructing that energy at an angle? Is Saturn conjunct Mars in Cancer? Well, no wonder why that Aries, ended up in jail, and who had a overbearing mother figure who then never succeeded in life. Okay? We're looking at something close to my chart, not exact. Or we might see a really well aspected Sagittarius or Jupiter placement going on, you know, and then we see that Aries is the philosophy teacher, and they got high honors, super status, and their picture is posted in all these psychology magazines. How did that happen? By the luck of Zeus, by the grace of Zeus, by the blessings of Zeus, higher education, rich parents, and now we see doors opened for the Aries, but they were also a really good student. They were a high achiever scholastically, and then they had, and they were a big talker, and they knew how to shake hands, wine and dine people, give people what they want. And now we see them at the very top. So we're really finding out it's the other planets and the placements that really determine if that person is a well functioning personality under that sign. So that is my video. And I hope this makes you a little bit more wiser before you start you know buying into all the crap that's being put out on the internet about signs.